Today we're going to learn how to write and graph equations from tables or story problems. So here's our first example. A bicycle rental company charges $18 to rent a bicycle, plus $7 for every 2 hours that you keep the bicycle. The first step we need to do is complete the table below to show the cost for the hour given. So our story problem says the company charges $18 just to rent the bicycle. So that means before any hours are spent, it is $18 just to get the bike. Then the story problem continues saying plus $7 for every 2 hours. So we would need to increase by 7 each time we jump up 2 hours. So our first jump, 18 plus 7, gives us 25. 25 plus 7 gives us 32. 32 plus 7 gives us 39. 39 plus 7 gives us 46. Now the other thing we need to look at is how much the other side of the table jumps up as well. So from 0 to 2, it is a plus 2. From 2 to 4, it's a plus 2. 4 to 6 is a plus 2. And 6 to 8 is a plus 2. So now we need to graph our points. So we use the points in the table, 0 to 18, and we go and graph it on the line. So we find at 0 hours, which hours are represented down here on the bottom of the graph, at 0 hours, we would go up to 18 for the cost. So we make a little dot starting right there. The next one, 225. So we go over to 2 on the bottom, and we go up to 25. So that's halfway in between 20 and 30. We continue this for each dot. 432, 639, 846. And then we can connect the dots by drawing a straight line through them. Remember, since you are freehanding these dots, it may not be a completely straight line, but if you were to graph it on a calculator, it would be. Now the last thing we need to do is create our equation. So we're going to use the form of the equation y equals mx plus b. And remember, we talked about how b is that one-time fee, or your starting amount. And then m is the amount that is changing per each and every. We also learned that it is the change of y over x. So in our equation, the y will never change, equal sign will never change, and the x will never change. So we can put those in there just to start off the equation. Now we need to find what m and what b are. So we look back at our table. B is the easiest one to find, and it's what happens when our x is 0, our y value would be the b. So in this instance, since 0 hours rented is $18, 18 would be our b. It is a plus 18 since it is a positive 18. Now we need to find our m. We do that by taking the change of y over the change of x. So I'm going to write over here m equals, so the change of y would be 7, the change of x would be 2. We see that because each time we jumped up on the y side was 7, each time we jumped up on the x side it was 2. When we solve that, it is just a division problem. 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. So we would plug that in exactly where m is to get 3.5x. So our final equation would be y equals 3.5x plus 18. Here's our second example. It says the temperature of a pot of water is 45 degrees Fahrenheit. the temperature increases by 20 degrees Fahrenheit per minute when the water is being heated. What would the temperature of water be after being heated for 6 minutes? So there's two things we need to do first. We need to find the equation, and we need to answer the question. I would definitely find the equation first because it will make finding the answer so much easier. So we're going to use the same form for our equation, y equals mx plus b. And we can go ahead and fill inside the equation what will never change, the y equals and the x. So now we just need to read our problem over and kind of break down what it's saying. It says the temperature of a pot of water starts at 45 degrees. Then it increases by 20 degrees per minute. Okay, the keyword we look for is the per, the each, and the every. That is a very, very important word right here. That will tell us our M amount because that's what we're increasing by every single time. So our M would be 20, and our starting point would be our B. So we would put plus 45 because that is the temperature that the water started at. I'm going to give you some little notes that we need to write down just to help you remember. M would be the per, the each, or every. The thing that is changing every single time. And the B would be the starting amount. Now that we have our equation, we can answer the problem. So it wants to know what would the temperature be of the water after being heated for 6 minutes. So we take our equation, and we're going to plug 6 in for x. Plugging 6 in directly for x. Then we can solve the problem. We can do 20 times 6, and that would be 120 plus 45. Now we have to do that math. 120 plus 45 is actually 165. And that gives us our answer after 6 minutes. It would be 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Here's our last example. A pine tree is planted when it is 24 centimeters tall. It grows at a rate of 3.2 centimeters per week. How tall will the pine tree be in 8 weeks? So again, the first thing we're going to do is create our equation. I always like writing out our form, y equals mx plus b, just to help us remember. And then filling in what never changes. Y equals in the x. So we go back and we're going to break down the word problem to figure out what our M is and the B is. Remember, the M is the per, the each, or the every. And the B is the starting amount. So our example says a tree is 24 centimeters tall. So that's when it was planted. That is how tall it is. That would be our starting amount. And then it says it grows at a rate of 3.2 centimeters per week. That word right there is very important. So our B is the starting amount, and we said the tree started at 24 centimeters tall, and it grew at a rate per week was 3.2, and that would be our M. Now it wants us to answer the question, how tall will the pine tree be in 8 weeks? So we have to plug in 8 for x. So I'm going to use that equation that we had. Y equals 3.2. We're plugging in 8 for x plus 24. Now we need to multiply 3.2 times 8. Do that over here to the side. 8 times 2 is 16, carry the 1. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 1 is 25. There's one decimal, so I have to move that decimal place one time. So I get 25.6 plus 24. So now I need to do that math. I'm going to go over here to the side and do it. 25.6 plus 24. Make sure you line up your decimal or you will get the question wrong. 6 plus 0 is 6. Bring our decimal straight down. 5 plus 4 is 9. 2 plus 2 is 4. So after 8 weeks, the tree would be 49.6 centimeters tall.